So we're recording. I'm going to call the meeting to order, this special meeting of the ARPA Assessment Committee at 4:30. And Barbara, would you be okay with taking our first set of minutes?
Sure.
Not giving it to you forever.
Maybe we can take turns.
Yes,
That seems
I
like
actually
a fair thing to
that's-
do.
I think that's a pretty fair thing to do. So welcome. So we're just going to follow our agenda. I don't think we'll be here too long today, but we wanted to just kick off the process and get started. So introductions, I'm gonna, on the Brady Bunch panel, I'm gonna go to the right on the screen and start with Matthew Starr joining us. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to volunteer on this committee.
Well, I'm Matt Starr. I've lived in Kent pretty much all my life. And I just, saw an opportunity to do something other than most of my spare time is taken up with the Kent Fire Department and volunteering for that, and writing Gene emails in my spare time. So I thought maybe this would be something good to do. And I've heard a lot of talk about this money. So I thought I'd like to be involved and see if I can help with the decision-making process.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Joe, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Agle. I live here in Kent. I've lived here for approximately, I'd say 24 years. I'm a former employee of the post office, and also I worked at the Veterans Administration hospitals. So I have about, I would say, 35 years altogether of federal experience. Anyhow, in town here, I'm the vice chair of the Kent RTC. I'm a parishioner of Sacred Heart Church. I'm a member of the Historical Society, and just recently I joined the Masons. So anyhow, the American Rescue Plan, I follow everything political. I'm a political nut. And anyway, I heard about the American Rescue Plan. I heard from Chris Garrity that they were going to be seeking input from residents here in town. I'm very excited about this, and there is so much that can be done and used to improve the town, and I'm just very happy to provide my input.
Thanks, Joe.
You're
Jean's
welcome.
talking to herself.
Yeah, Jean, you were muted.
Sorry, Connie Mannis, who was, she was coming to the meeting, came in and asked where the meeting was. And I was just giving her the heads up that it's via Zoom. So I think she's going to log in from the parking lot. Patricia, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Patricia Orris. I have owned a home here in Kent since 1998. For most of that time, my husband and I were weekenders. We would hightail it up from the city on Friday nights and go home on Sunday nights, but we have been full-timers for the last 6 years. And since I've been a full-timer, I have more time, obviously, and I'd like to use some of that time to help the town of Kent, which is my home and a place that I have grown to love over the last 22 years. I understand my background is in strategic communications, branding. That is my expertise. I think I might be able to use some of that knowledge in this committee, but I see this mostly as a exploratory job, trying to research various businesses, organizations, nonprofits in town to recommend people that may have needs. I don't see it as deciding how to spend this money, more as identifying places and people and organizations that have seen a downturn in their financial situation as a result of COVID. So that might be a little different from how others see it. But that's how I understand the role of the committee. And I'm anxious to dig in and try and find out who really needs our help with these funds.
Barbara, do you want to go next? I think, oh, Debbie was just in your doorway.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm Barbara Herbst. I'm the town treasurer. I've been here since 1992. No, 2009. Since 2009. And I think it's important for me to be on this committee because I'm the one that has to do the reporting for the federal reporting requirement. All the money goes through my office. I'm responsible, and I need to keep my finger on all the pulses all the time. I do think I am more in agreement with Patricia than I am with Matt. I think our charge, even though it has not been officially established yet by the Board of Selectmen, at least I don't think it has, is going to be more along the lines of doing research and providing information than it is going to be about making decisions. At least that's the way I see the charge for this committee shaping up. And I just want to ask, we made a point of sending this out to everybody. Did everybody read it?
So I just wanted to finish with introductions.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Don't go ahead. I'm Jean Speck. I'm the first selectman. I have a great interest in walking through this process of assessment with the group. And Connie, thanks for joining us from your car.
Outside of town hall, because I thought
Right.
the meeting was in person. Oh, wow.
So I am going to, we had asked the chamber before the group was put together, before the motion was made by the Board of Selectmen, to have somebody from the chamber be part of the committee. And because the motion read that Chris Garrity made, that it was specified 5 and we could add, or there could be members added with Board of Selectmen approval. I'm going to request that Connie, as a member of the chamber and the representative of the chamber, be added at our Board of Selectmen meeting this coming Tuesday. So for efficiency purposes, and since Connie's our sole sort of member of the public for the time being, why don't you just give us a quick introduction of yourself and your interest in, playing a role in this committee and the assessment that we're going to do.
Sure. Well, I think it is important that it be understood that I am the representative of the Chamber of Commerce on this committee. And so people know me in different roles within the community, but I take seriously my role to represent the town businesses and the chamber members, including nonprofits. I am a member of the chamber, but I'm not coming at this with solely a conservation bent is, I guess, what I would hope that the committee members would know and understand. I'm Connie Mannis. I live in South Kent, have since 2003. Raised 3 kids here who went to Kent Center School and then on to some of our private schools. And I am a member of, actually chair the Kent Conservation commission. So also have served in, that function with town government. I think that's enough.
Thanks, Connie. So we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is orientation to the American Rescue Plan Act. And as Barbara mentioned, we sent out the CCM toolkit, which really does give a very succinct, boiled down, where's my IFR, version of the Treasury's interim final rule, which is however many hundreds of pages, 151 pages. And they hit the highlights. Is there anything, any sort of standout questions or remarks about that toolkit? And there's going to be, so there's been a sort of ebb and flow to the information that's been coming out. Barbara and I were talking earlier today. We wish that toolkit had come out, 2 months ago or 3 months ago. We get the information when we get the information. But I was just on a webinar this morning from another one of the many sources of information about the act. And it was really informational. They said they're not going to have the PowerPoint deck or the webinar available for 48 hours, but when I get it, I'll send it out to you because it really gives a lot of good information that I think is going to be relevant to our work as a sort of, steering committee for this assessment. But does anybody, if you guys want, I can put it up on a screen share. Do we have questions about the toolkit? Connie, I'll make sure that you get the toolkit.
I have it.
Barbara. Okay.
You sent it to me.
Okay.
I want to point out that the toolkit is available on the town website. So if anybody asks you anything, you can direct them to the town website. I had Darlene put a live link right on the homepage of the website that says ARPA. I think it says ARPA funding or something.
Yeah, so let me do a quick screen share so everybody knows where to find it.
So when people click on that, it'll take them right to the page where they can see this American toolkit and download it if they want to read it. And I would like to populate that page with a couple of other documents. So I will be doing that as we move through the process. One of the first things that we did is we created an ARPA email for the town. And then we initially put up a request for information for the taxpayers that was on the website. And I don't know how long it was actually up on the front page. It is now on the ARPA page, which you can get to by Jean showing with that little clicker.
Can you guys see, you guys can see my screen. It's the homepage of the Town of Kent website. So if you scroll down, there's now a hyperlink here.
Right.
That goes out to that page. Right. So you'll start seeing more information populated here. Once we get a charge from the Board of Selectmen, we'll have some content that starts to populate here because we really want this to be sort of the public hub for information for our town for this funding, the process. And is this a link to?
Yeah, that's to that. Well, it should be. Click on it. That should be the initial request that I had put out saying that we want to hear from you, blah, blah. And we got one response from that, just one.
And this is that email address that Barbara mentioned. Go ahead, Matt.
But this was just posted on the Kent website. It wasn't sent out, correct,
Right.
Barbara?
Right.
Okay.
It's going to be this committee. My understanding is it's going to be this committee's job to get this information out to the taxpayers and then collect information about our citizenry and the businesses and nonprofits and organizations to report back. So that was just sort of initial early on that I put that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have the the newsletter that has about 1,350 names. We have our Facebook. There may be, need to do a mailing to the town, to everybody in the town, because we want to make sure that we're getting in touch with everybody. Just looking for my agenda. I lost track of it.
And
Joe,
I
go
also-
for it. And you guys don't have to raise your hands if I think this is because we're such a small group, just to speak up when you like.
Sure. I just want to put my thoughts out there. I had read the toolkit, the CCM information, and I also have I've got information from the actual American Rescue Plan provisions. So just to read all these things, to read it all over, there's a lot of material there that is, it's just like government, the typical government, information overload. So when reading it, just to kind of distill everything down to like what the basic things that they're saying, and basically what I interpret this as is that they are asking for any kind of how your town was affected and how it could be rectified and improved, and whatever ways you can think of how it could be, with the mission of it having been how it could be invested and things that could be invested and how things could be recovered, recovery from the pandemic. So anyhow, my understanding is that the committee is to prepare a report on what its advice or suggestions may be. And also they mentioned too in the report that this is a timely matter also, that a report should be prepared, and then so it's presented in December, so these funds are not lost. So the reason why I bring this up is that if things go in the direction of getting a lot of input, spending a lot of time on that, it's going to delay things a lot. So to kind of herd things in so it's focused on a certain timeline, that's my thought on that. I don't know how the others feel about that, so I just thought I would put that out there.
I just want to add a little bit of clarification for you. Kent is considered what they're calling a non-entitlement unit within this funding for ARP. So basically what that means is that we don't have to apply for our funding. Our funding was designated to us. We've already received half of it. We have $410,000 plus in the bank right now. A year from now, we'll get the other 410. And I think the information that you were just referring to, Joe, is for entitlement towns where they have to apply to receive the money. So they have to say how they're going to use it and how much they want to ask for, that kind of thing. And we don't have to do that. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Oh, so then therefore a report doesn't have to be prepared?
Well, I would like to see a report prepared and delivered to the Board of Selectmen explaining how COVID has impacted the town of Kent and what financial economic measures can be taken to address that impact. But it
And there are
doesn't,
reporting requirements for the funding that Barbara is
Right.
required to make for, what would you say, audit purposes for,
Well-
we have to make sure the federal government, we have to report to the federal government that we're every penny that has been spent, but that, that's going to come when the funding is dispersed.
We also have to report on what we're doing. So it's more than just a financial report that I have to submit.
And your first report is due in like September, right?
October 31st.
And what will you put in that report? That you've established a working committee to investigate areas where we may put that money to good use, social services, local small businesses. They mentioned hospitality and tourism and travel. Is that essentially what that September report will say?
Pretty much, I'll document wherever we are in the process and say,
Yeah.
This is what we've done. This is where we are. This is where we're going.
The one of the things that stood out to me in the manual, I have a good sense of what their preferred type of expenditures are. And one thing stood out to me was their encouraged expenditures. Categories include addressing racial disparity, inequities, and disproportionate harm. And I wondered if that was something we could actually look at. I'm not sure how we would address that, but it seems to me that the government is looking for us to somehow address that subject. I mean, there's obviously others, broadband, nonprofits, but this one seemed, they drew particular attention to it in the manual. And so I thought somehow we should try to pay particular attention to it in our analyses. And I don't even know if it's relevant for us. I guess that's what I'm throwing out there.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking that the first step in the process is really going to be taking a census of what we actually have in town. What do we have? How many nonprofits? How many businesses? How many organizations?
Yeah, that makes sense.
How many people are utilizing our social services and the Kent Community Fund? And that type of information gathering is going to give us a baseline of what we actually have in town. And then we'll have to figure out some way to measure before COVID to now.
Yeah.
How
Do
these
we need to know how
populations
many
were-
people lost their jobs as a
I
result of COVID?
I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how we get that information other than through a survey. I don't
Yeah.
think the government is going to tell us.
Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Jean, is there a charge for the committee? Barbara kind of brought that up in the beginning, but what exactly is the charge of the committee? What is the task we're going to be assigned to do?
We haven't gotten a formal charge. That's on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting from the Board of Selectmen. And Barbara and I will basically report this initial discussion, and then the board will have to, decide. And they had a discussion, we've had a couple of discussions at previous meetings where Barbara and I have been sort of introducing this and providing the information that we've been learning from all the reading and all the webinars. So the formal charge will come from them on Tuesday night.
And another question, who will be the final decision makers? Is it the Board of Selectmen? Is it the taxpayers? Once the committee does all their research and gathers this information, I assume we give a recommendation what kind of the best uses are for this funds or this first half of the funds. Who makes that? Who's the decision makers?
I would say it needs to be a process between the selectmen and the Board of Finance at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I could be allowed to speak,
Of
I don't
course.
know how proper that is.
Yep, it's fine.
It seems to me that we ought to try very hard not to get bogged down too much in being exhaustive if it interferes with our ability to get money out to people who have been harmed. And so, we might want to focus on lost revenues and financial harm before thinking too much about, what's new. Although I truly hope that there are monies left over that could be for things that are improvements. But I just, it was when I was at the chamber meeting on Monday, and the chamber was discussing whether or not it could have the champagne stroll. I got the distinct feeling that our businesses really feel that they have no choice but to be open. And, we are all doing our best now to, deal with the most current news and to, adopt CDC guidance and just really keep on top of that. But I don't think that our businesses feel that they really have the ability to do another shutdown, even if one were warranted. So I'm feeling very strongly that we ought to collect information about harm and lost revenue first.
But there's more people that were harmed with lost revenue than just the businesses. So we have to be inclusive and really include everybody, all the different entities, including individual people that lost their jobs.
Right. So it's
I
like
agree.
striking that balance between, like Joe had said, spending too much time doing research and information gathering versus getting this money, making a recommendation so that we can expend the funds and help people and businesses in town. Joe.
Could I just say something about, everything, in my opinion, everything that was mentioned is all great and valid and everything. Now, the use of funds, it's listed in the toolkit, and it's also listed in the American Rescue Plan use of funds as to, it's just simply guidance as to how to recover from the pandemic and so forth. Anyhow, they mention citizens recovery. Now, citizens had already gotten the economic stimulus payment already. So my opinion on that is that part is basically covered already. Now, and businesses also were allowed for the Paycheck Protection Program, which aided them during the pandemic. So to look at other situations that were not given enough relief, my opinion is to concentrate on some of those areas. And there's also, as far as infrastructure goes, and the other, the not infrastructure, but the internet, connection.
Broadband.
Yes, broadband. I mean, there are things that could be done to improve, to use money to improve on some of those things too. And to cover a lot of those areas, I think it could be done. I think, Matt, it could be done probably by making a list of coverage for a lot of these things. And as I say, I would definitely be offered to give input on a lot of those areas.
Okay. I think we should move to setting a recurring meeting schedule. And I think because there's we have a lot of work ahead of us, I'd like to do an every other week regular recurring meeting. If everybody wants to pull out their calendars. I don't know if this you know, could we find meeting perfection and 4:30 every other Wednesday works? And Matt, we're just pulling out our calendars to see if we can find an every other week date and time that works. So let's start with Wednesday, every other Wednesday at 4:30. Does that work for everybody?
Works for me.
When it's really hot, it's nice to come inside in the AC. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I
That's
think
fine with
that
me.
works for me, but I'm not even sure because I'm not sure what the regular schedule is for the sewer commission.
They're Tuesdays at
They're
4.
Tuesday, then I'm good.
Connie, does
I see.
Wednesday?
Yeah, I seem to be clear through December.
Okay,
A little tight on the 15th, which is 2 weeks from now, but I have a meeting on site somewhere
okay.
until
And they all
4.
get
So
reported.
I'll be in the car again.
The
Um,
15th is not 2 weeks from now, right?
Isn't
It's
it?
today the August 11th.
Oh, the 25th. Sorry. I might be away actually on the 25th.
I
Thanks,
myself, am
Patricia. I started on the wrong one. Otherwise, I'm good.
Okay, Joe, what were you saying?
I myself am flexible, so I mean, if Wednesday is no good for the others, I could change to another day.
Okay. Connie, are you okay if we have you watch the recording of the meeting on the 25th? If you can't make it, if you don't have cell service or,
Sure.
okay,
Sure. And I'll probably go to the select board meeting next Tuesday. So I'll get to hear about the charge, which will be helpful.
yeah, I think that will definitely give us a pathway. So in the meanwhile, lost my agenda again. So it sounds like we have a recurring schedule, which I don't think I've ever set a recurring schedule that quickly and that painlessly. So thanks, everybody. So we'll get a charge from the Board of Selectmen Tuesday night. You can visit that webpage. We're going to start to populate that with more content. I want to write a little sort of an introductory paragraph of what ARPA stands for, you know, just to start off with the acronym, and just the basics so that it gives the page a frame. And when I get that webinar link that I watched this morning and slide deck, I'll push it out to the group. We have a group email set up. I think it's ARPA committee. So if you do a reply to that ARPA committee, you'll send it to the 5 of us. And as of Tuesday, we'll CC you, Connie, on this until Tuesday when you get the appointment from the Board of Selectmen, and then we'll include you on that group email. But if you just respond back to that, I think it's ARPA committee, it'll get to all of us on the committee.
Great.
And since we're in a
And then
special
perhaps
meeting,
at that next meeting, once we know our charge, we can start thinking of assignments, and
yes,
that would be an appropriate time for that.
yes. All righty.
Great.
Gene, I had one other question. Is
Sure.
there any timeline requirements that certain things have to be done? Because I did see some dates, but then Barbara said, you know, so is there any upcoming timelines that we need to be aware of?
How about if I create the timeline from the information that I have and I'll send it to everybody, because there's reporting, there's a timeline for when the funding needs to be obligated. There's a couple of different, so I can put that in an email and send it to everybody.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And if there's any, you know, if you all come upon Pearls of Wisdom webinars or new, you know, sort of distilled down documents, by all means, share them to the group, and Barbara and I can go through and, you know, put some of that stuff up for the public. And we'll likely have, you know, there'll be probably after the next meeting, we'll probably put together a newsletter to talk about, you know, everything what the committee's done so far and sort of a big rollout to the public so that we start to give them visibility and just engagement on that.
We do have a subscription for Surveymonkey, and I think it would
Yes.
be in our best interest to utilize that often for this
Yes.
process.
I imagine we'll be,
Ask for a lot of feedback from the community.
and those are, I have a lot of experience from my days at DPH with Surveymonkey, so we can get something, get quick surveys up if we have a couple of questions, or, it is a wonderful, wonderful tool.
Do we know what other towns are doing around this? Has that been an issue,
Oh.
that the COG has
Yeah,
addressed?
that's what I
Or
was
Thanks
thinking.
for bringing
Are
that
there
up.
like any best practices yet?
Yeah,
That-
so at the last COG meeting, which was our first in-person COG meeting in a long time, I asked the group if anybody was interested in having just a roundtable discussion, information sharing, what are other towns starting to do? Also looking at, does anybody have any in the COG? Do you have regional thoughts on what we might all bring, a percentage of our pot together to do, to provide some regional assistance? And that meeting is tomorrow. So I'll report back to you all after they'll have minutes for the meeting, and I'll be able to give you guys any insight that's coming from all of our COG members.
It's interesting. I've gone on quite a few different municipal websites just to see, from my perspective, how they're handling it. And almost every single one I've been on, whether it's been in state, out of state, wherever I'm looking, there's surveys and requests for public participation and public input. And,
Yeah.
How has this affected you type of, the same sort of thing that I had put out on the town website, same type of thing. Please let us know. How has this affected you? Did you lose your job? Did you apply for the payment
PPP, yeah.
protection plan? What have you done? What's happened to you? And where are you today type of information?
Mhm. So good question, Joe.
Yeah, I just this goes along with the conversation now about how other towns have been handling the situation. And I forget what town, I had read this in the newspaper, and their approach, I believe it was the Board of Selectmen that had the decision making. And their approach that they had used was they selected things with the understanding that it would affect the greatest number of people within their community. In other words, it would benefit the greatest number of people in the community rather than just a selected group of people. In other words, they shared things with the greatest number of people. That was this particular town. So in fact, you may hear that tomorrow, Jean, when at the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. All righty. We've done everything on our agenda. So I'm going to, at 5:08, adjourn the meeting right in the middle of, as the skies open up. And thanks everybody, and we'll see everybody on the 25th. So I'll send out, once we get an agenda, I'll send out the agenda with a Zoom link and a Google Calendar invite. If you use Google Calendar, by all means, it'll be there. The agenda will be attached so that you don't have to go lots of different places. So we will move forward from there. Everybody have a
Thank you,
safe
everyone.
afternoon and stay cool.
Thank you.